Well, you are not alone tonight in this country if you disapprove of Donald Trump's presidency. A new poll finds the highest disapproval number that Donald Trump has ever had. If you disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing as president, you are joined by 63% of Americans in that disapproval. That is 1 percentage point higher than the disapproval Donald Trump achieved in the same poll in the second week of January 2021 after he told a Trump-supporting mob to go to the Capitol and fight like hell. More Americans disapprove of Donald Trump tonight than they did after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And you are not alone tonight if you disapprove of Donald Trump's handling of the government shutdown. You are part of the 61% majority who disapprove of Donald Trump's handling of the government shutdown. You are not alone tonight if you blame Donald Trump for worsening economic conditions. 61% blame Donald Trump's policies for worsening economic conditions. You are not alone tonight in this country if you think the country is moving in the wrong direction. According to a new ABC News poll, 2/3 of the country believes that. 67% say the country is moving in the wrong direction. ABC News notes majorities of Americans in urban, suburban, and rural areas say the country is moving in the wrong direction, as well as those with varying levels of education and income. That is a powerful polling result in a country that usually has significant differences between urban, suburban, and rural areas, and significant differences in polling among varying levels of education and income. But majorities of Americans in all of those categories believe the country is moving in the wrong direction. So you are not alone, no matter where you live in this country, if you think Donald Trump is moving the country in the wrong direction. In that same ABC News poll, 64% of Americans say Trump is going too far in trying to expand the power of the presidency. In 288 days in the presidency this time, Donald Trump has managed to unify the country in disapproval of him. The ABC News poll shows majorities of Americans also disapprove of how Trump is handling every issue measured in the poll. Over 6 in 10 disapprove of how Trump is handling tariffs, the economy, and managing the federal government. About 6 in 10 disapprove of how he is handling the situation involving Russia and Ukraine and relations with other countries. More than half disapprove of how he is handling immigration, crime, and the situation with Israel and Gaza. He does not have approval from most Americans on a single issue measured. Donald Trump is losing the American people on every single issue. The ABC News poll also shows, quote, majorities of Americans also say Trump is going too far, trying to expand the power of the presidency, laying off government employees to cutting the size of the federal workforce, sending the National Guard to patrol U.S. cities, and trying to make changes in how U.S. colleges and universities operate. And so we can see tonight, Donald Trump is going too far, but the country is not going with him. The ABC News poll shows that Donald Trump has his worst polling numbers ever handling the economy, with 62% of Americans disapproving of how Trump is handling the economy. But polling indicates that even though Donald Trump has lied to every American every time he has described his tariffs, telling the lie that other countries pay those tariffs, even though Donald Trump has been pushing that lie for 10 years now, a majority of Americans know better. A majority of Americans know what tariffs are. A majority of Americans know that they and they alone pay the Trump tariffs. Here is Donald Trump's written response to the new polling showing his record high disapproval and a majority of Americans blaming him for worsening economic conditions and a majority of Americans disagreeing with him on every issue. Donald Trump says, I have the best numbers I have ever had. Donald Trump, of course, turns to a classic Trump lie in the face of his worst polling numbers. And then he adds the lie that he has, quote, kept prices, inflation, and taxes down. In fact, prices and inflation are up, and Donald Trump's tariffs are in fact, taxes. And so Donald Trump was the first Republican president in 35 years to raise taxes, which he did enthusiastically all by himself with his tariffs, which are sales taxes paid by Americans. The last Republican president who was in any way dragged into an involvement in raising taxes was the first President Bush, who agreed to a budget deal with a Congress controlled by the Democratic Party in 1990 that included some modest tax increases. George H.W. Bush did that very reluctantly, but Donald Trump has enthusiastically raised taxes through tariffs and tells Americans the lie that they don't have to pay those Trump taxes. And when polls show that most Americans know that Donald Trump is lying about that, Donald Trump lies about the polls, calls them fake polls by the radical left media. The polls tomorrow are going to produce results that Donald Trump is going to have to live with when voters in California voted on a redistricting plan that could add possibly 5 Democratic seats to the House of Representatives, and when voters choose their next governors in Virginia and New Jersey, where President Obama campaigned for the Democrats this weekend.
Is the economy working better for you? Because it sure has gotten better for Trump and his family. Since he's been in office, the family crypto business and other ventures have made hundreds of millions of dollars, and getting investment from foreign nationals and rich folks looking to stay in the president's good graces. The economy has been really good for some of Trump's billionaire friends. And it's been good for some finance bros and well-connected corporations who've seen their tax bill go down and don't have to worry about all those pesky regulators anymore. But for ordinary families, for you, your neighbors, your friends, costs have not gone down, they've gone up. Partly because of Trump's shambolic tariff policy.
Donald Trump now wants you to believe that his pardon policy is as shambolic as his tariff policy. Donald Trump's defense of a pardon for a cryptocurrency billionaire was to claim that he has no idea who that convicted criminal is who he, Donald Trump, chose to pardon.
The Trump family is now perhaps more associated with cryptocurrency than real estate. You and your sons, Don Jr. and Eric, have formed World Liberty Financial with the Witkoff family, right, helping to make your family millions of dollars. It's in that context that I do want to ask you about crypto's richest man, a billionaire known as CZ. He pled guilty in 2023 to violating anti-money laundering laws. Right. The government at the time said that CZ had caused significant harm to U.S. national security, essentially by allowing terrorist groups like Hamas to move millions of dollars around. Why did you pardon him?
Okay, are you ready? I don't know who he is. I know he got a 4-month sentence or something like that, and I heard it was a Biden witch hunt.
In 2025, his crypto exchange Binance helped facilitate a $2 billion purchase of World Liberty Financial's stablecoin. And then you pardoned CZ. How do you address the appearance of pay for play?
Well, here's the thing. I know nothing about it because I'm too busy doing the other.
But he got a pardon. But he got a pardon.
No, I can only tell you this. My sons are into it. I'm glad they are because it's probably a great industry, crypto. I think it's good. You know, they're running a business. They're not in government.
And then there's this from the Republican Speaker of the House.
Last week, you came here to these mics, and you were very critical of Joe Biden's use of the auto pen, his pardons. You said you didn't even know who he was pardoning. But last night on 60 Minutes, President Trump, admitted not knowing he pardoned a crypto billionaire who pleaded guilty to money laundering. Does that also concern you?
I don't know anything about that. I didn't see the interview. You have to ask the president about that. I'm not sure.
So did the auto pen do it? Is that where that pardon came from, of the crypto billionaire? Imagine, just imagine, if you will, that Joe Biden issued a pardon to a billionaire that he and his son were in business with. Republicans would have obviously immediately moved to impeach President Biden if he did something like that. And the White House press corps would have never stopped literally screaming about it in the White House press briefing room and screaming directly at President Biden whenever they got a chance to scream at him. And then imagine that Joe Biden tried to defend that pardon to a billionaire who was making him and his son rich by saying, quote, "I know nothing about it." President Biden would have been accused of lying or dementia or both. And quite understandably, no Democrat would have defended a Democratic president for issuing such a corrupt pardon. Donald Trump's actual explanation for the pardon of the criminal who has made Donald Trump and his sons richer was, here's the thing, quote, "Here's the thing, I know nothing about it because I'm too busy doing the other." He never told us what the other is. If Donald Trump had said in that interview, "I know nothing about it," if he had been asked about tariffs, I would have welcomed that answer as Donald Trump finally telling the truth. He knows nothing about tariffs. Donald Trump knows absolutely nothing about a lot of things. But Donald Trump knows where his money comes from. Donald Trump knows who makes money for him. Donald Trump knows who gives him money. What the new polls show us is that it's not working. The Trump method is not working. The Trump lies about tariffs or the economy are not working. The majority of Americans don't believe Donald Trump on those things and disapprove of Donald Trump. And when Donald Trump says, "I know nothing about it," it is safe to assume he knows a lot about it. And when Donald Trump says he doesn't know anything about the Epstein files after having reportedly been briefed on the Epstein files and the number of times his name appears in the Epstein files by his attorney general, you have a right to assume that Donald Trump knows more about the Epstein files than he is admitting, and knows more about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell than he is admitting. Today, the Democratic leader of the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries, said that the Republican-controlled House of Representatives is, quote, "running the pedophile protection program," end quote, by refusing to allow a vote by the House on the release of the Epstein files. That phrase came in the middle of an animated answer to the question, would tomorrow's Election Day result possibly help put an end to the government shutdown?
All Republicans care about is the opinion of one man, the puppet master of the Republican Party, Donald J. Trump. They don't care about anything else. How else can you explain the fact that they are weaponizing hunger? How else can one explain the fact that they refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits and they're hurting their own constituents? The 5 states most impacted by the failure to extend the Affordable Care Act are all led by Republicans. West Virginia, Wyoming, Alaska, Mississippi, and Tennessee. Republicans could care less. How else can you explain the fact that Republicans have canceled votes now for 6 consecutive weeks, missing in action, taxpayer-funded vacation, running the pedophile protection program while doing nothing to make life better for the American people? It's all because Donald Trump hasn't given them the order to sit down and actually reopen the government and negotiate a bipartisan path forward. What's Donald Trump been doing this weekend? He was on the golf course, spitting in the face of the American people